All right, so right now we're right here with the artist, author, amongst many things, Mr. Maurice Tyree. So, you got a story behind you, right?
Yes, sir.
You just recently put out a book. Could you tell me a little bit about the book, please?
Yes, the book, The Darkest Part of My Blackness, a journey of remorse, reform, reconciliation, and revolution. Yeah, this is a story about, it's not a story, it's actually a compilation of letters and aphorisms where I was in communication with my family, friends, and closest comrades. And yeah, it was an act of transformation for me. You know, and I chose the letter writing perspective simply because two reasons. It's because one, I was functionally illiterate, and I think I was learning and re-educating myself and learning how to re-educate or educate myself through letters and poems and things of that nature. So it became quite natural for me to do this in letter form initially. But yeah, it was a part of my transformation, re-educate myself.
So for those that don't know, right, tell them why you had to write letters. Where were you writing those letters, you know, and the backstory with that?
Well, at the time I was incarcerated. I had been convicted and sentenced for first-degree murder. And I was sentenced to 35 years to life in prison, which I ended up inevitably doing 20 years of that sentence before being released. So at the time I was writing letters, I was in several different actual institutions, the federal penitentiary.
Yeah, I could, but you good. So you wrote the letters. You were incarcerated, right? There was a motive behind that because I can imagine 35 to life, right? You may be thinking, maybe I'll spend the rest of my life here. Maybe I'll fight, whatever. There was a reason why you decided, well, let me do this. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, the biggest reason, one was I learned that without re-educating myself, I wouldn't survive prison. I wouldn't survive life. I think ultimately what kept motivating the letters outside of me just writing for my family, my children in particular, it was that if I didn't educate myself, I would simply die in prison, illiterate, which in of itself was traumatic for me. That was one of the hardest things I had to realize, that I needed information. You know. Yeah.
Okay, so I took it as the education was a form of hope for something to better yourself. Then, as you go on this journey of writing, expressing yourself, the drawings, the poetry, what is it that you discovered about yourself?
Well, one thing I discovered about myself is that I was more passionate and compassionate that any of my environments led me on to believe. You know? And one thing I learned through my writings and through my visual artwork was I wanted to change the wrongs in the world. And the more wrongs that I seen when I was in prison, it enraged me. It enraged me to the point of bringing out the artistic side of myself. And so that's why most of my artwork is so one might call radical. because it was a radicalness that was getting pulled out of me. And the dehumanization of man was something that I never liked. And that's what was constantly driving me to do the artwork, along with educating myself with the literary work.
So the thing that's remarkable in this thing that I always want to highlight, for those of us that have experienced incarceration or may have came from whatever our backgrounds were, whether it be poverty, whether it be whatever forms of trauma, is how people can take those, like you say, darkest places and become a light, become a beacon, right? And you spoke about your transformation. So I would love to hear about the work that you've done since being able to, be awarded your freedom that that fought for.
Yeah. Well, what led me on to sort of an activism, sort of civic engagement type journey was that once I began to transform myself, self-revolution, self-reframe, I learned that it was time to aid in transformation of social reform. And that's what started. It started actually in prison, where I was involved in programs. Manhood 360 was actually one of them. And so I just wanted to aid and assist the youth, along with the elders, collectively so we could begin to heal in prison. And that led to my social engagement upon release. I think that from a communal standpoint, we all must be civically engaged. I don't believe that there should be a person that's not involved heavily in their community, or because where we come from, which would be the street life and things of that nature, we don't think it matters much. We inherit the environment, and we accept it as it is. But to make it better, and to make it healthy, we don't feel like our input even matters. And I learned that wasn't the case. I learned that the same way we can transform, or the same way we can deform communities, we can reform them and make them stronger and better. And so I began to first work with the mayor's office of Return Citizens Affairs, and I became a commissioner. Now I'm a commissioner for reentry and Return to Citizens Affairs. I began to work in partnership with Marlboro Mayor's Office on Return to Citizens Affairs with Director Lamont Curry. And we are responsible for advising the mayor, city council, and the director on matters or legislation that removes barriers for return of citizens. And so I began there, I work in the community. And from there, just wherever the work is needed, I show up,
So this is a question that I like, because it's something that I believe, but I want to hear your point, right? What has worked for you in your transformation, right? Do you think that can work for others?
Of course. What works is belong. I think most of us are kind of grew up not believing that we actually belong. It's always us versus them type attitude we have in society. And we are them. The society is made up of all of us. And it's all our responsibility to engage in it. And so we must learn our society, we must learn our community, we must learn our politics, we must learn economics, we must bring all these, our culture, and bring everything together and participate in civic engagement. And most importantly, in our participation, we must become useful. And so what helps me is the fact that I've learned that I am my community. I am my nation.
Well, I think that right there pretty much sums it up for everything, man. How can people find your book? How can they find you? No, that's beautiful. That could be part of this. Let them know where we are right now, so they can understand what's going on.
Yes, right now we're at the school, the Corcoran School of Art and Design, George Washington University. And you can find my book at Amazon.com or Live Live Publishing. You can buy it there, or you can email me and buy a signed copy of it at email maurice.w.tyree@gmail.com, or you can find me at Instagram mtyree2021, or on Facebook Maurice Tyree.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to say to anybody that may watch this, whether it's the young person that needs some inspiring, anybody that has a vision of a person that's incarcerated, or somebody that has a vision, any type of impression or opinion of somebody that's a returning citizen?
Any impression that you may have from a incarcerated person or a returning citizen, 9 times out of 10, I can guarantee you it's a wrong impression.
So to reiterate that, so you're saying that basically people won't know, they shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Like these titles or these stigmas are, in most part, fictitious.
Never. You should never judge a book by its cover. I have a thing where I call touching things. Meaning, anything that I have a perspective or opinion on, I want to engage it. That's how I touch it. Whether talking to it, talking to them, or whatever the situation may be, I investigate. I don't care. It could be from the perspective of maybe a female, or to a perspective of actual racism thinking. I want to learn about racism. Not only do I engage history, but I engage as a racist and ask. And I think that's how we should be in life with everything. We should constantly educate ourselves, but especially with perspective. Because a lot of us go through life mimicking life. We don't really have a personal perspective. Our perspectives come from what we may hear or see constantly. But the biggest problem comes when you engage things, when you touch things.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Can't just take somebody else's word for it. You gotta see yourself.
Yes.
So, it's a blessing and an honor to be able to see your show recently, man, to see the surroundings, see the place, see the support that you've had, to be able to see even the pictures of the work that you've done since you've been home. Like, that's incredible. You have done what they said, hit the ground running, and still, as you can see, humble man, even with doing a lot, he doesn't really wear it on himself, and definitely helpful, man. Met you doing work at with Morkley, and we just continued on. So it's been an honor, a blessing, a privilege, and we're gonna keep on. All right.